Hey everyone, my name is Chris Lambert, and on this channel we talk Kanye West, and I made a video doing a overview of what this image is, where it comes from, but I wanted to do another video where we actually watched the short film, The Ravishing of Frankenstein, and talk about it in more detail and just kind of see, I don't know, go full film school and look at the themes, the subtext, the context of what we're picking up and how it might apply to Kanye or why he might be interested in it. So without further ado, let's get into it. So we start with just a countdown, some title credits. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, The Ravishing of Frankenstein. So the first thing to just kind of notice is that it's not Frankenstein, it's Frank and Stein. So clearly a play on the name. So that's something to pay attention to and keep in mind. Because on the one hand, you could read it as just like a cute reference to the monster character, which is actually Dr. Frankenstein. The monster is Frankenstein's monster, but popularly so many people have just referred to the monster as Frankenstein, even though not its name, but The Ravishing of Frankenstein. So we open with just some strange lights, which we'll understand at the end of the movie. So I guess I'm just going to spoil this because I'm assuming other people have watched it already. But when you get to the end of the movie, you realize you're in the perspective of Frankenstein's monster this whole time, who we'll just refer to as Frankenstein for ease of reference. But this would then be the beginnings of consciousness. Famously, the story of Frankenstein is that Dr. Frankenstein has this reconstructed dead person on a table and uses a lightning strike to bring life to this monster. So the Frankenstein monster is something that awakens from the dead, comes back to life, and essentially starts learning how to be a person. Over time, developing reading and writing abilities, leaving Frankenstein and going off into the world, kind of scaring people, and you kind of just hear the journey that the monster goes on. So I would imagine that these opening bits that are very abstract and not necessarily grounded in any kind of who, what, when, why, how, it's actually the beginning of the monster's consciousness. So this is it kind of waking up. This is the start of the brain activity. This is the start of vision. So that's what just this nothingness kind of represents. So we see this going on for a little bit. And you can see the start of some like perspectives in here, right? Like it initially just looks like a bunch of nothingness, but over time you can start to see some flickering of things. Great. Are those starting to look like leaves, birds, clouds, skulls, like faces? You're definitely starting to see some faces in there. A hallway, a woman, like a shattered glass tube, and then this as well, which seems like something else that's broken. And then it starts to resolve, right? These shapes gain form, they gain specificity. There starts to be like a foreground, middle ground, background, and then we realize we're in the laboratory. So this is Frankenstein's monster waking up in the laboratory with no Dr. Frankenstein about. But you go from kind of this awakening into the room to now movement. That was good timing on my part. So you can kind of see something in the reflection there. Not much, but it's changing over time. And this is what made the creator of this is George Schwizgebel. I can't say his name. He's a Swiss artist and filmmaker who does these great illustrations on glass. So we're just going through these empty rooms right now, and this will be symbolic once again of Frankenstein's consciousness and sense of the world. So as we see in the novel that Frankenstein develops over time, the same thing is happening here, but it's being shown in this very visual way where we start with these empty rooms, and what we eventually come to is that this is all in Frankenstein's head. So this does feel very much like a way of showing what is in Frankenstein's head. So it's these empty rooms, these very abstract rooms, getting this sense of space. It's just like blueprints. It's kind of deconstructing the actual like film layers, and then we take a right turn and we're back into reality. window. There's another little cubby hole here with something in it. But it looks like just a recessed space, right? There's nothing on the other side. But when we get to this third version of this room with the window in here, it actually gains depth. You can see through it. So we're starting to see the development of more 3 dimensions, object awareness. There's now blue out the window on the right side there. Continues the lumber, and now we see a vague form that could be blocks and cylinders, but also looks like the legs and body and head of an abstract person there. And now we go down. And I think each staircase kind of represents almost like a more depth being gained or a leveling up of perspective. So we're going to see more colors, we're going to see more details start to emerge as Frankenstein continues marching towards this idea of awareness. So it's all external, which is another thing to keep in mind. And now you're seeing more an emphasis on people, right? First, just the figure that we saw in the corner before going down the staircase. Now you have these like abstract blocks, or not abstract blocks, but just generic blocks, but this concept of a person in the window. And previously, it was the block that was in the window. So now we're going to get to another room where there's now depth to this, right? It's no longer just a recess, but a window into another room. And now one of the blocks is a person, but a vague form of a person, more of a mannequin. And it goes from something that's a little more feminine, potentially, to more masculine on the other side. And now we can see the colors are starting to come in. And there's a chair, right? Somebody's sitting. We see mountains in the background. So now there's kind of a concept or idea of nature, of grandeur. And this is the same person we saw in the corner. There's another sense of like an external place that's not just this hallway starting to creep in. And now the person in the corner looks way more like a person, right? And they even start to get up, which is the first motion that we've seen. And of course, that motion is right before the steps to more depth. The same way that we saw the person in the corner before we went down the level and now see more people emerging, we're now going to start to see more motion from those people. So again, just this evolving over time. And what this really symbolizes is just the developing consciousness of Frankenstein. You can see that the people now have arms, and for a moment they gain more details. You can start to see kind of like facial features. You can almost see them moving at times. There's a little bit of a jerking motion. So very abstract, very abstract, very abstract. And for just a second, you can kind of see like eyes appear, like a little bit of a nose. Still very sketched, but it's showing up. Now we get this. Yeah, another room, darkness. Yeah, you see that she was wearing a dress for a second. We saw like the people are almost naked for a second as well. So the form is developing. Yeah, somebody else walking. Get the room returns, and now we get a hallway, which actually looks very much like Kanye's, like the hallway in Kanye's home, which I may just, do I want to bring up a picture of that real fast? Hallway, wait, hallway Kanye house. Yeah, okay. Oh, why do you have to be... I can't just find like the simple photo. It has to take me to the website. Okay. Yeah? Bear with me. The website is being annoying. Okay. Scroll down. Oh, just show me the photo. Open image in new tab. Okay. This isn't even going to be worth it, is it? Okay, so... this is the hallway in Kanye's house. So you can see what that looks like, and then you can see what that looks like. Which I'm not sure when Kanye first saw this, and I don't think he's basing the hallway on this, but it's just funny that there's kind of a striking visual similarity between the two. Anyway, so you can see a person inside there. So people were kind of outside the rooms, the environment has started to take on more dimensions, and now we see a face, another face, the outside world, this idea of going on a ship. there's travel, and now the people gain like a ton of dimension. You're seeing facial features, you're seeing outfits, you're seeing hair, but you notice that the people are all the same. Like the woman is the exact same in every time that we see her, even though the guy is still a little vague. But now that starts to change. Clearly the guy is Frankenstein, and then the woman is the Bride of Frankenstein, which was one of the sequel movies. And they're destined to be there, right? It's Frankenstein, the Bride of Frankenstein, it's the male monster and the female monster. They'll end up in love, right? And we go through this room, so there's more of them, more of them. He's becoming more aware of himself, but from kind of like an external idea, and more aware of herself, or her, as somebody in his life or in the world. And so we get into one last room. It starts to abstract again like it was earlier, and then we'll finally get to the staircase. And now we're starting to see more motion, which we haven't seen that kind of turning motion that they did before. And now as he goes down the stairs, and remember the stairs each time are representing like an added layer of intelligence or awareness. So this is important that we're going down another level, and you can see that the face, like the element morphs to his face. So it went from the room that he's walking into, and you can see like right here, that becomes the eyes, it becomes the mouth, the nose, the head, which is kind of this cool switch. But that also means that the camera for the first time is external. So there's this awareness of self coming from outside of himself for the first time. And why is that? Because he looks and sees, grinning, the Bride of Frankenstein. Boom. Boom, boom, boom. So you can even see him coming down the stairs, coming to the Bride of Frankenstein. So it's almost like when he sees her and recognizes her in this way, he can see himself through her. There's something to that, which gets into like a lot of psychology, right? We always have this idea of who we are, but that idea of who we are is challenged when you walk up to a group of strangers, right? And you become self-aware of the fact that they're going to see you. How are they going to judge you? The gaze of someone else upon you stirs up a lot of emotions and is important in a lot of ways, because we're always so internal. It can be hard to get outside of ourselves to really get an idea of ourselves from somebody else. So socializing with people that you know, with strangers, can often be really important to the idea of development and self-awareness, because it gives you a perspective of self that you might not ever get if you're completely... I accidentally stopped the recording rather than replaying this. Okay, this is the first video that I've ever had to edit together then. All right, so that was a cut. So just by getting outside of yourself, it can be a very important lesson, and that's what happens here. It kind of builds up from this internal state of being to an external awareness. And you see Bride of Frankenstein looking at him. He goes to grab her, excited, and she screams. And his face just drops. Like, what's it mean that you see this person and their reaction to you when you're so happy to see them is to scream? And it's not just a random person screaming because they've seen a monster. It's another monster, and it's a monster that's known as the Bride of Frankenstein. So just how painful must that be to encounter something like that? And his face is just completely stone cold. And then we zoom out, and it's a movie theater, and you realize this is on a movie screen, which then adds a whole other dimension to it, because we went from being inside of this Frankenstein character, seeing him gain consciousness over the course of this journey, to now having the external point of view of the Bride of Frankenstein screaming at him, and now jumping back to the audience that is watching him. So it becomes something that went from us being aligned with Frankenstein to us now the voyeur of Frankenstein, to us being very much the audience watching a work of art. So there's now separation between us and Frankenstein in a way that there wasn't in the first 7 minutes of this short film, but starts to get into the idea of theory of mind and connection through cinema, and really how art can put us in the mind of someone else, which is really cool. And then you see the actual film reel and just kind of going, and then it fades to black and we get Finn. So it's really, I think, I mean, conceptual. It's very conceptual and heady, but I also think it's very moving. And the main question then is, with all that said, how does this apply to Kanye and where Kanye's at, right? And we won't really have any answers to that until we see the Chicago listening party and can start to, make deeper connections between what we see there and maybe applications of this. It might be that we see the Chicago listening party and there's just nothing that we can connect to Kanye and we're just kind of at a loss. But it's also possible when you go back to Kanye's Instagram and you look that he has already this photo of him in this space. And it looks like he's kind of walking through this dark and empty space, which just makes me think that he's kind of in some ways channeling this already. And we'll see if he kind of follows up with that idea. The other major takeaway, not just the idea of gaining consciousness, the other main themes of that story are this Bride of Frankenstein rejecting Frankenstein. And we know that on the album specifically, Kanye talks about losing his family. He talks about his divorce from Kim. So there might be something to the idea of Kanye going through all of this stuff only to lose, his bride, and kind of capturing that. There's also something to the idea of Frankenstein being dead and brought back to life, and how you want to start applying that. Do you want to apply it to Kanye? And Kanye, kind of coming back to life in the wake of his divorce, this starting a new chapter in his life after being married and now going back to single Ye, and he sees himself as kind of resurrected in a sense, but also kind of a monster. Does it apply to the album being called Donda and him thinking about his mom? That seems like kind of the most of a stretch. I don't think he's trying to like bring his mom back to life or anything like that. So I'd keep it more, my theory right now would be more focused on him and the idea of how he sees himself, and this album being kind of a reflection of self. But we'll see. Once we hear the final version of the album, can we go back to this? Maybe there's a reference in a lyric that we'll go back to, but it definitely seems to at least ground us in this idea that Kanye is in a very self-reflective place. And I think if it was not the build up to the album, because I feel like this is kind of a mood board for Kanye, if it's any other time, I'd just be like, Kanye's interested in art and he's interested in identity, so I just leave it at that. But that he's kind of setting the tone for the album, I would imagine that this has some kind of application to what we'll be seeing in Chicago, or where Kanye is currently at with the album and what he's thinking about the tone and themes that are going on there. So that's it for this video. I'm going to go stitch this together with the other one and for the first time put out an edited video. So we'll see how that goes. Wish me luck. But if you're enjoying the channel and you want to support us, the easiest way is to like, comment, subscribe. Any of that tells YouTube this is a channel people enjoy, so then they show it to others, which goes a long way in supporting us. We also have memberships on YouTube, which, if you want to throw $2 a month at us, that's much appreciated as well, but unnecessary, but much appreciated. And we have our podcast, Watching the Throne, a lyrical analysis of Kanye West. So any of those things. Until next time, stay wavy and keep it loopy.